Hey, do you love a good story? Great. Then you got to check out the #Storytime podcast. Each episode brings you the craziest, creepiest, and cringiest stories from YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, and beyond.
My story is about the time that I was broken up with at the 9/11 memorial. Twice.
Look, the internet is a dumpster full of stories, and I, your host, Will McFadden, dive in headfirst, sift through the flaming trash, and bring you nothing but treasures. Listen to all 21 episodes of #Storytime now on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Streaming only on Peacock, Ghislaine Maxwell had it all until she met Jeffrey Epstein.
Ghislaine Maxwell's charged with enticement of minors, sex trafficking of children, and perjury.
Epstein's Shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell. Streaming now, only on Peacock.
The Oracle Network.
Well, hello, America, and thanks for coming. My name's Seth. What's yours?
Hey, it's Jamal.
And Stony.
Have you ever had Drag Race withdrawal? You know the symptoms. Not enough glitter, eyelashes not staying glued down, and that red itchy rash that just won't go away.
You should see a doctor for that.
And the only prescription for your blues is more Thanks for Coming, the most magically gay podcast.
With at least 150 podcasts, 7 seasons of Drag Race coverage under our belt, and topical queer discussions, there's a little bit for everyone here.
That's right. We're even featured on Cosmopolitan's list of top 7 RuPaul's Drag Race podcasts that spill the hottest tea. Join us every week as we bring you a fun recap of the latest episode of whatever season we're covering.
It'll make you feel like you're back on the couch discussing the latest episode of Drag Race with all your friends. Stop by thanksforcomingpodcast.com for links to listen on your platform of choice, links to all of our social media and recent happenings.
Oh, what are you waiting for? Go check us out, Hanny. Thanks for coming, a RuPaul's Drag Race podcast.
Hey, Rainbow Warriors. This is my disclaimer. Beyond the Rainbow is a true crime podcast. It's not suitable for young children, and maybe not even for some adults. I tend to swear like a sailor, and I'm kind of proud of that. Listener discretion is advised. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBT. I'm your host, CJ. Find me on the socials, Facebook at Beyond the Rainbow Pod, and please like my page at Rainbow Crimes. I'm on Instagram at Beyond the Rainbow Pod and Rainbow Crimes 12, and Twitter at Rainbow Crimes. My website is beyondtherainbowpodcast.com. On the site is an extensive list of missing but not forgotten LGBTQ people. And should you want to help support the show, there's a link to my merch store on my site, which, by the way, I'm proud to say I found the cure to my American flag dilemma. I made it into a shirt. This episode is a special collaboration episode with my buddy JT, who's the host of Active Shooter podcast. JT also has an upcoming project as well. He's going to be co-hosting a new podcast called Emergency. All tea, all shade. It'll be a Drag Race rewatch podcast. Both hosts are uber Drag Race fans, giving their hot takes that you didn't ask for. #you're welcome. JT's co-host will be my other buddy, Eric Carter Landine from True Consequences. So make sure you watch for that. It was only last month in March 2021 when a gunman entered the Golden Massage Spa and opened fire. He killed 3 immigrant Korean women. Today, our next race movement is to stop Asian hate, something I wholeheartedly support. I keep asking the question, why is there so much hate? I have my opinions, even if they aren't the popular opinions. I still place a lot of blame on organized religions, especially the cultist ones. I believe that they're the core of the hate. When I say religious cults, I mean the religions that preach hate for groups of people. They interpret what they want from the Bible, which again to me is just a book written by mortals who claim to have spoken to God. Some have even said that they had visions that God told them they should kill this group of people or that group. It's bullshit to me, frankly. The first, but definitely not the only that comes to mind, are the crazies from the Westboro Baptist Church. The ones that show up to funerals of children or soldiers with signs that say God hates fags. How about God hates haters? Another Baptist church in Knox County, Tennessee, had a preacher on Sundays but a cop during the week. His name is Grayson Fritz. Good old Fritz delivered an hour-long sermon on why gay people should be killed. It's not just the Baptist religion either. It's many religions. They claim to be good people or want to be good people, but their ideology makes no sense whatsoever. When I lived in Louisiana, not only were there churches on almost every block, but some of the churches, and I kid you not, had 100-foot crosses that illuminated. People who attend those churches are always asked for money. For what? For these outlandish purchases? You have the name church written outside your prestigious building. Why don't you put the money towards something more practical? Something that truly will make you good people, like housing the homeless or providing funding for mental health. I just don't get it. If you're part of an organized religion, I'm not knocking on you or your faith. I'm just saying I don't think God favors me any the less for praying at home. I'm not condemning all organized religions. Some I can totally see a purpose for, like the social aspect, rummage sales, carnivals, dances, music, and picnic potlucks. That stuff's great. It's the preaching on hate that ruffles my feathers. You're probably wondering why I'm going off on another freaking religious tangent. It's for a good reason, really, Rainbow Warriors. It has to do with this episode's case, and cultist religions, faith-based militia groups, and mentally ill individuals who believe God is speaking through them. So, before my rant, I mentioned the Golden Massage Spa shooting last month in Atlanta, Georgia. In 1997, right next door to the Golden Massage Spa, there was an LGBT bar and dance club. It catered mostly to lesbians. It was called the Other Side Lounge. It was summer 1996. The location was Atlanta, Georgia. Hotlanta. JT told me that he read only tourists call it Hotlanta. But Atlanta got that nickname due to its active social environment. The city's excitement and energy level was even more pumped now that it was summer of 1996. This was to be the year Atlanta would host the 1996 Summer Olympics. Over 2 million people from all over the world crowded in to catch a glimpse of and support their favorite athletes. Over 3.5 million people watched it at home from their television sets. I've heard cities get super stoked to host big events like this because it means a ton of revenue coming in with tourists. Centennial Olympic Park, a 22-acre location in downtown Atlanta, would hold concerts. On July 27th, Jack Mack and the Heart Attacks, a band from Los Angeles, were on stage rocking out. A security guard, who are often called rent-a-cops, was policing the field where crowds of people scattered. Some were sitting, some were standing at the outdoor concert. The guard, whose name was Richard Jewell, was a heavyset man who lived with his mom. Maybe you know someone like Richard. I know I have. A socially awkward, nerdy kind of guy with a low self-esteem and very, very rule-bound. This was Richard. While Jack Mack and the Heart Attacks were entertaining the crowd, Richard noticed a backpack that was left unattended. Richard chased down some kids he thought the backpack belonged to. It did not. So Richard looked into the backpack. He saw a military vest loaded with 3 pipe bombs inside. Richard gently set the pack back down, and then he went and alerted the nearest police officer he could find. Richard was then instrumental in helping to evacuate the crowded venue. Amidst the evacuation, the bombs went off. It was a high-impact blast filled with woodworking nails and glass shards. 2 people ended up losing their lives, and 111 people were injured. If not for the fast thinking of Richard, many more lives would have been lost. The backpack had a directed charge, and it could have done entirely more damage than it did. It's assumed when Richard checked the backpack, he moved the directional quality of the steel plates that were inside. And that saved even more lives than just bringing attention to the bombs and assisting in evacuation. In initial press releases, Richard was being hailed a hero. His act of heroism was very short-lived, though. Once the FBI got involved in the case, they began to profile the bomber. The FBI felt Richard had all of the characteristics of what the bomber would metaphorically look like. Low self-esteem, lacking social skills, a loner. Richard would quickly become their number 1 suspect. Furthermore, the FBI was betting Richard had a hero complex. Someone who would go and set up a disaster so he could rescue people from it, and then gain positive attention for his heroics. A less than scrupulous Atlanta reporter named Kathy Scruggs got wind that Richard was being looked at by the FBI. In an attempt to boost her career, Kathy leaked the story in a front-page article she had written. 1 minute, he was America's sweetheart and a public hero, and the next minute, he was the most hated man in America. Thanks to Kathy Scruggs, that was Richard Jewell's fate. Nearly 6 months after the Centennial Olympic Park bombing, a pipe bomb that was similar to that of the park bomb exploded at a front corner of the Sandy Springs abortion clinic in Atlanta. Only 4 employees were inside at the time and nobody was hurt. About 45 minutes later, another pipe bomb was set off in a nearby trash bin outside. It went off as firefighters and law enforcement were cleaning up the mess and examining evidence from the first bomb detonated. 6 officers and firefighters were injured, but thankfully none critical. Almost 7 months after the Centennial Olympic Park bombing, and a month after the clinic bombing, the Other Side Lounge, mentioned earlier, would become the next target of hate. The lounge was owned by 2 lesbians who had met and fallen in love. Beverly McMahon and Dana Ford had met years prior on a blind date. Neither expected anything would come of it. But after that first date, the 2 were inseparable. Both women lived in Florida, and Beverly had opened up the first Other Side Lounge in Fort Lauderdale. She wanted to franchise the lounge, so the couple moved to Atlanta, Georgia. They bought an old steakhouse and transformed it into another lounge, the Other Side Lounge, the second. It was complete with multiple dance floors, a patio, pool tables, and an actual lounge where the patrons could sit, drink, and chat. It was very important to the couple that the Other Side Lounge be non-exclusive. They wanted everyone to feel welcomed. Gay, straight, bi, trans, black, white, yellow, green. It didn't matter. The couple spent a lot of time speaking with their customers. They learned that many of their customers had not been accepted by their families, and they were cast out. So during Thanksgiving and Christmas time, it became very important for Beverly and Dana to open the lounge to these people who had been cast out by their families. They provided them with a feast of food and gave them some good old-fashioned family love. By now, Beverly and Dana had welcomed 2 children into their lives, a daughter named Kellyanne and a son named Justin. The Other Side Lounge became a staple to the LGBTQ community, a safe haven to many. Drag performers would spice up some of the night's entertaining. They had live bands and comedians as well. Ellen DeGeneres was even known to have graced this bar after she had come out to the world. There was one night, though. Beverly had asked her manager to go kick off the two girls who were out on the patio stage singing. Much to Beverly's amusement, she was informed, Beverly, those aren't just two girls. Those are the Indigo Girls. For my younger listeners, the Indigo Girls were iconic lesbian singers of the early 1990s. Friday nights were especially hopping at the lounge. On Friday, February 21st, 1997, at least 150 people were at the lounge. Beverly was home with the kids that night, and Dana had just gotten home from the lounge. The couple lived less than a mile from the club. They tucked their children into bed, and it was Beverly's turn to head to the club. As she pulled up, she parked in front, and she headed towards the entrance. At that moment, a bomb went off. It sent nails and shrapnel flying everywhere. In some act of a miracle, the flying pieces zoomed past Beverly's head, missing her. Her car was not so lucky. When she turned to look at her car, Kellyanne and Justin's car seats were full of nails and glass shards. Beverly couldn't help but think, what if the kids were in there? Beverly went inside and she saw that the doors had been blown off the patio area. Initially, everyone thought that one of the club goers had been shot. That is until she held her arm up and there was a nail sticking out of it. Dana, who was at home with the children, found a last-second babysitter and quickly headed to the club. When she got there, she saw firefighters performing triage on clubgoers. She ran into the club and she saw a mess on the patio. Holes were in the patio's cover. Debris was everywhere. Thankfully, only 5 people were injured and not too seriously. A second bomb was found and taken care of before it could explode. How anyone there that night avoided death is unexplainable. What did die there that night was the dream Beverly and Dana had nurtured along for many years. Desperate to not let the haters defeat them in the LGBTQ community, the couple cleaned up and fixed the damage at the club. Within a week, the club was back open for business. Sadly, the couple could not repair the damage done to the psyches of their customers. With the loss of cash flow, equity, and cost of renovations, the couple had lost almost $6 million to the bombing, and they were being threatened. Calls to their home and left on their answering machine. Yeah, I said answering machine. It was the 90s. The couple also received threats in the mail. Snail mail, not email. Some of the letters stated the writer would come and rape the couple, show them what it's like to be with a real man. I can totally profile what kind of men wrote letters like that, because that's my other job, FBI profiler, remember? Beverly and Dana were scared for their children, and they thought about sending them to Florida to stay with Beverly's parents. But the couple didn't want to back down from this adversity. They wanted to fight through it and shine. Then they were hit with about 20 lawsuits from customers who said that the couple should have known the bombing was going to happen. And to that I say, shame on Beverly and Dana. They should have called their psychic friends hotline, and they should have known that a bomber would strike their nightclub. The couple won against their lawsuits, thankfully, but they were so disheartened. They had done so much for their community, and then to have their community turn on them like this. The couple ended up closing the Other Side Lounge in Atlanta, Georgia. By now, the world was watching Richard Jewell under a microscope. The FBI started to believe Richard had a partner in the bombings. He was under their eye 24/7, and he pretty much just stayed locked up in his home hiding from the press. Someone had to be doing the bombings. It must be his partner, which is kind of stupid because that goes against what the FBI was saying all along. Richard's a loner. It had been almost a year now since the bombing of the Other Side Lounge in Atlanta. On January 1998, almost a 2-hour drive from Atlanta, another abortion clinic was attacked with a remote nail bomb. A security guard, or what was left of him, died. A nurse for the clinic was very seriously injured. This was the 4th bomb attack in Georgia in a 2-year time span. But if the bomber is not Richard Jewell, then who? For that answer, Rainbow Warriors, we turn to my friend JT.
In Rise Up and Salute the Sun, the writings of Susie Kassem, the author of the same name writes, "Killing in the name of religion defines someone who is ignorant, and actually void of religion. God does not condone terror. To kill innocent people, to make a political statement, is like shooting a dove to say hunting is wrong. I don't know about you, but placing a weapon of either minimal or mass destruction is beyond words. How do you quantify the size of a bomb? Is it lives taken? Damage costs induced? Fear levels rising?" While Richard Jewell was being cornered as the bomber, and the case was being sensationalized by the media, one Eric Rudolph was planning his next strike. Rudolph can only be explained as a radicalized, right-wing, pro-life failure. While accomplished in some areas of life like survivalism, he truly had very few wins to his name. And no, I'm not placing the nation's most wanted domestic terrorist on that list. Eric was born in Merritt Island, Florida, on September 19, 1966, to Robert Rudolph and Patricia Murphy. His siblings included 3 brothers and a sister. From the beginning, Eric was inundated with fringe beliefs. Both of his parents held numerous beliefs, from hatred of Social Security numbers to a faith in the curing powers of late trial. Yeah, I know. I didn't know what late trial was either. It's another name for amygdalin, which is a bitter substance found in fruit pits such as apricots, raw nuts, lima beans, clover, and sorghum. It makes hydrogen cyanide, which is changed into cyanide when taken into the body. The substance was falsely promoted as a cure for cancer. At the age of 15, Eric's father died, and his mother moved the family to Nantahala, Macon County, in western North Carolina. Nantahala is an extremely small township made up of just over 1,500 people, and is part of the greater Macon County, which was formed in 1828 and given the name for Nathaniel Macon, who represented North Carolina in the House of Representatives. As he grew older, Eric found a large portion of his identity residing in Christian identity. This was primarily due to his mother, who moved the family to Topton in 1981 to live near Nord Davis, who moved from Florida as well to become the leading patriarch of the racist and anti-Semitic Christian identity religion. More on this a little later. Rudolph attended the 9th grade at Nantahala School, but dropped out after that year. During his time there, as a freshman, Rudolph wrote a class paper denying the Holocaust ever happened. He also found a mentor in Thomas Branham, who was a survivalist and sovereign citizen who believed the government had no authority or jurisdiction over him. So far, we have an upheaval in his childhood, and both the death of his father and a physical upheaval by moving, only to have the empty void filled by religious fanaticism and Christian identity, and a survivalist, sovereign citizen. Needless to say, recipe for success? Around the year of 1982, Eric's mom and family moved again to Missouri to stay at another Christian identity compound for several months. This compound belonged to Dan Gaiman and his Church of Israel. Rudolph was fully immersed in the extreme ideologies. So, what is Christian identity? This anti-Semitic and racist theological group rose to a commanding position of the racist right in the 1980s. Christian, in name only, it asserts that white people, not Jews, are the true Israelites favored by God in the Bible. Nord Davis, mentioned earlier, built a large Christian identity compound in the area of western North Carolina. Davis claimed feats such as ending the Vietnam War, and had followers that included many of the most hardcore members of the militia movement. To give you an idea of what Davis felt, he once told a reporter, quote, "If you are an enemy of God, I'm obliged to kill you." Again, the best recipe for a sure winner. Eric eventually passed his GED and joined the U.S. Army, receiving basic training at Fort Benning in Georgia. In 1988, he attended the Air Assault School at Fort Campbell and reached the rank of Specialist E4. On the morning of graduation, students must complete a 12-mile march with a rucksack. A rucksack weighs an average of 102 pounds. Ultimately, 55% of students fail to graduate. Despite his, quote, successes in the Army, he was discharged from the Army for smoking marijuana. At the time, he was serving in the 101st Airborne Division at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Post-discharge, Eric returned to North Carolina and continued to work as a carpenter, living off the system by accepting and only paying in cash. He refused to use banks or Social Security cards. He also would not pay taxes. Some reports say that Eric supplemented his income by growing marijuana in the woods. Due to his mentorship by Thomas Branham, the survivalist, and his green thumb moment planting marijuana in the woods, Eric got to know the wilderness well. Eric was also surrounded by hate. While western North Carolina is not technically a hotbed of hate, it has features that seem to attract people with extremist views. It's a remote area and possesses a resentment of the government that is a carryover from bootlegging days. White supremacist Ben Klassen moved there, as well as white supremacist attorney Kirk Lyons and paramilitary and survival trainer Bo Gritz, the Patriot leader. This region boasts so many sovereign citizens that believed the government was taken over by conspiracy, becoming illegitimate. They formed their own common law court. So, what makes a bomber? Therein lies the question of nature versus nurture. In this case, I think we can say that Eric's past, both in geographical location and immersion into extremism, created intense feelings and beliefs. When thinking about the basics of bombers, Malloy and McEllister in their paper Bombing and Psychopathy, an Integrative Review, write that most bombers are single Caucasian males. If they are not single, they are involved in what is called a marriage of convenience. The age range is anything from 12 to the 6th decade of life. What makes bombing so attractive for individuals and groups? In Understanding Terrorism, Group Strategies in Counseling and Development, Poland writes about 5 reasons. 1. Bombings are the most effective way of attacking an enemy. They are lethal, indiscriminate, and cold-blooded. 2. Explosive and bomb technology, including manuals, are readily available at low or no costs. 3. One person with required expertise can make bombs. 4. Improved timing devices reduce the risk and allow terrorists to escape injury and detection. 5. Terrorists have learned that the bigger the explosion, and the greater the casualties, the more intense the coverage by news media. To sum up, bombs are efficient, effective, and potentially lethal. In terms of criminal typology, the personality types can vary as much as the devices that are created. Eric shows aggressive narcissism, a grandiose sense of self-worth, lack of remorse, antisocial behavior, callousness, and the belief that his beliefs were worth the damage he caused in both lives taken, psychological fear created, and property destroyed. In a Ripley's Believe It or Not series of events, Rudolph eluded authorities for over 5 years after his last bombing. It turns out, the survivalism he learned in Nantahala and the Army served him well. In July 1999, Woody Anderson, chief of the Southeast Bomb Task Force, predicted that Rudolph would be captured because, quote, time is on our side, and that, quote, eventually, everyone makes a mistake. In December of 1999, John McGaugh, retiring director of the Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, tells USA Today that he thinks Rudolph is dead. A few months later, July 2000, agents searched a rugged part of the Nantahala Forest, 4 miles from where Rudolph was last seen, and find the remains of a campfire on a high, narrow ridge. There was mold found on the fire, indicating that it was at least a year old, and there can be no assumption made that it was Rudolph's. They did find branches that were cut with a small saw, which is quieter than breaking them, and the site offered a view in the direction from which any searcher would approach. Finally, in May 2003, Rudolph is arrested in western North Carolina. Although Woody Anderson was a few years off, he was correct. A rookie police officer arrests Rudolph after spotting him hiding behind a grocery store in the early morning. Reports are that Rudolph was digging through the garbage for food, a behavior many thought might be occurring for his survival. On April 8, 2005, the Department of Justice and Rudolph agreed to a plea bargain. Eric pled guilty to all charges he was accused of in exchange for avoiding the death penalty. The deal was finally confirmed after the FBI found 250 pounds of dynamite he had hidden in the forests of North Carolina. Revealing this was a condition of his plea agreement. In the end, Rudolph released a statement that explained his actions. Rationalizing his actions. Correction. There is no rationalization, except in his own mind. This is what he said. After much thought and consideration, I entered into an agreement with the government. After potentially facing 4 trials in 4 separate jurisdictions on circumstantial evidence that would likely lead to a conviction in at least one of these jurisdictions, I have deprived the government of its goal of sentencing me to death. The fact that I have entered an agreement with the government is purely a tactical choice on my part, and in no way legitimates the moral authority of the government to judge this matter. All right, Eric. Rudolph was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms. He was sentenced July 18th, 2005, and that same day, Rudolph was sent to the ADX Florence Supermax Federal Prison. He spends 23 hours per day, alone, in his 80-square-foot concrete cell, 7 by 12 feet, with a 4-inch wide window and a concrete stool, desk, and toilet sink combo.
Thank you, JT. Eric Rudolph was a domestic terrorist, and it seemed he acted alone, other than the voice of God encouraging him to bomb the Olympic Park, the 2 abortion clinics, and the Other Side Lounge in Atlanta. Rudolph was a member of the Christian Identity Movement. Let's just throw it out there. These groups, well, they're fucking scary. Their hate is for any non-white ethnic group, any racially mixed groups, anyone who condones abortions, and the LGBT community. Yet they consider themselves good Christians. The reporter Kathy Scruggs, whose headline blasted Richard Jewell's the alleged bomber and the one the FBI was looking at as their main suspect, she died 5 years after the controversy blew up in her face. She was 42. The medical examiner said that her death was from active morphine toxicity, but they couldn't be certain if it was attributed to suicide or if it was accidental. Until Eric Rudolph was captured, our guy Richard Jewell, he lived every day in fear he would be arrested and convicted of crimes he didn't commit. Upset he caused such a disarray in his mother's life, Richard moved out of his mom's place and into a place of his own. He sued several news organizations for libel. The cases were settled out of court. The newspaper Kathy Scruggs worked for was also sued. But they went to court, and they claimed at the time Richard was being examined by the FBI as the bomber. So their reports were accurate. The case against the newspaper was eventually dismissed. The U.S. state attorney sent an official letter to Richard exonerating him from any wrongdoing, but they offered no apologies. Richard met, fell in love, and married a woman named Dana. He sadly died at the age of 44 from heart disease and complications of diabetes. Beverly and Dana, the former owners of the Other Side Lounge, they were interviewed after the Golden Massage Spa shootings last month in March. Beverly believes the shooting was a hate crime, much like the Other Side Lounge bombing. She said, "Gay people, they're picked on. The Asian people, they're picked on. All these groups are picked on. And the past 4 years has not helped with any of it. With this kind of hate, we have to stay strong and band together." I agree, Beverly. Love you, Rainbow Warriors. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy killed 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series, John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now, only on Peacock. Peacock fuels your true crime obsession with exclusive new originals like John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise.
He said to me, clowns can get away with murder.
Dr. Death, the undoctored story.
This guy's dangerous.
And Epstein's shadow, Ghislaine Maxwell.
She inherited Jeffrey Epstein's secrets.
There was this whole other world going on.
Plus the most bingeable crime series, Buried in the Backyard and Snapped. And with the Dateline 24/7 channel that's always on.
Did you want her dead?
You can't not obsess. Sign up now at peacocktv.com.